So last week, the federal government issued their 2023 Intergenerational report. It's all based around 5 pillars. So we wanted to give you 5 risks that you can seize and maximise the opportunities from them for future business growth.
Economic development is just like risk management in that it's all about people. And as famously quoted by Peter Drucker, the ultimate resource in economic development is people. It's people, not capital or raw materials, that develop an economy. All right, so let's talk about the 5 pillars. So population and ageing, Bron, that's number 1. Talk us through that.
Yeah, and so as we are ageing, so is our workforce. And so we are set to have many of our workers due to retire. So we need to think now about how do we get both number of resources and the skills that we need for the future. So how is our work going to be done? How many workers we're going to need to do it? Where are we getting the skills from? So you might need to think about what your work would look like in the future. Can you partner with a competitor even to secure the skills and resources that you need for the future?
And that's the trend, isn't it? We're seeing at the moment that you would think it's counterintuitive, but in certain sectors, particularly even the for-purpose sector, we're seeing competitors come together for strategic alliances. And I think that's really what we're talking about, isn't it?
It is, and that's probably goes hand in glove with the pillar from the report relating to the care economy or the carer economy.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about that one. Let's jump over it. Let's talk about the care economy or the demand for care services. All right, talking about care and support services, where we thought this lands is that it's in the demand for care workers, and that's only going to elevate as the population ages. And what can you do about it? Collectively work with the industry to make these types of roles more attractive to younger workers and a younger workforce. An example we're seeing at the moment is in New South Wales, this move towards portable long service leave provisions for community sector workers. That's a pretty good start, don't you think, Bron? But it's not really enough. And you've got to really ask yourself the question, what does technology or what role does technology play in this space, which probably leads us on to the next pillar, which is the role of technology and digital.
Yeah. And really, technology is going to change our work design. So we've talked a lot about people, but now we need to talk about work design. So what are the tasks that we do and how are we going to complete them? Will the tasks be the same? And will the way we complete them be the same?
All right, so leading on to climate change, which is the next one, topical issue at the moment. Can't argue with the impacts or the projected impacts of climate change in terms of how it's going to change the way we work and the impacts on society in the next 4 decades.
What is the new generation now going to be expecting that maybe past generations maybe haven't?
Yeah, well, I think, look, we're already seeing it in boardrooms across the country in terms of ESG, real ESG, so no tokenistic approaches to ESG. So that's probably a no-brainer. If you don't already have a real program on ESG, you need to really start working on it in order to prevent the impact of this risk. Then beyond that, I think the reality is we're looking globally at schemes such as the modern slavery reporting requirements or the modern slavery legislation in Australia. You would only assume fairly safely that compliance and reporting requirements are only going to escalate over time when it comes to things like climate change, or climate impacts related to your suppliers, mandatory reporting schemes on the impact in terms of carbon footprint of your supply chain, not just your specific entity that you operate out of.
And that's really important, is considering up and down your supply chain. What are your suppliers and partners? What are your suppliers and partners doing in this space, and is it going to rub off on you? Yeah,
and I think, look, that needs to incorporate the E for environment, but separate to the climate change issue for the intergenerational report, you absolutely need to include the S and the G, which is the social and the governance aspect. All right, and lastly, geopolitical risk and fragmentation. It's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it, really, Bron?
Yeah.
What does it really mean? It can feel a bit nebulous. I think it's really important that we've seen publications like The Economist come out post-COVID and say that supply chains are making this shift from efficiency to resilience. That's really what I think when I think about geopolitical risk and fragmentation are the real things that you can look at as an organisation to try and respond to this potential risk. So we know that this sort of systemic volatility and disruptive, let's call it disruptive operating environment, it's actually the way it's going to be now. So whether it is geopolitical confrontations involving state-sponsored actors, or if it's other issues to do with either climate change, social upheaval, the list goes on. I think
just also having a look at basically, where do you source your stuff from?